Hello everyone, a warm welcome to another power session here at KrispCall, and I'm Swastika Dimsina and I serve as a project manager here, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Thank you for taking time to join us today. As you already know, today's session is titled Go Global, Sound Local in 2026. Increase call pickup rates from anywhere. And that title really captures the answer to the challenges most modern teams are facing. Because today, going global is easy. You can sell anywhere, you can hire remotely, you can run campaigns across regions. But when it comes to phone calls, the moment your team picks up the phone, trust becomes much harder to earn. And that's exactly what we are going to talk about, the way you can fix that. So let's start with a quick warm up so we can personalize this session. In chat, can you mention the number that matches your team? One for sales and outbound, two for support and inbound, three for recruiting, and four for mixed teams. Perfect. So let's go with one more. Which region do you call the most? Example, North America, Europe, or Asia Pacific? Great. So this helps because of local presence work differently depending on your team and market. And I'm clearly not alone here. Let's welcome Abhishek Regmi, Senior Business Analyst here at Call, to walk us through this today. Abhishek works closely with global and remote teams to help them design calling system that improve trust, increase pickup rates, and scale cleanly across markets. Hello, Abhishek. Great to have you here with us today.
Thanks. Thank you, Swastika. So, hi everyone. Just really glad to be here. So just a heads up. So today's session is going to be very practical. So since this session is designed for teams that rely on calls, whether that's, sales or support or recruiting, or, you might be doing a mix of everything. So we'll focus on what's actually working for these kinds of teams in 2026, and how you can apply this without overcomplicating your setup. So if your team has ever struggled with low pickup rates or missed calls or calls that don't convert the way they should, stay with us until the very end.
Perfect. So before we dive in, let's walk our audience through what we will be covering in today's session. So are you ready, Abhishek?
Yes, absolutely.
We'll start by looking at the 2026 pickup rate reality, why remote and global teams are getting ignored on calls, and even when they have strong products and real demand. Then we'll talk about why local numbers, how local number work, and how trust, familiarity, and customer expectation play a much bigger role than most teams realize. And from there, Abhishek will introduce the local framework. Or a simple and structured playbook for launching local presence quickly, and will then break local down into practical pieces, the steps to follow to make this framework work, and even how to design this framework step by step. After that, we'll look at one of the most high impact areas like recovering missed calls and ways to measure the result of the local framework. Obviously, did I miss anything in this?
No, I think that's all covered. But we'll of course be discussing each of these in detail. So if it doesn't make sense right now, that's okay. So we'll just make sure our audiences can grasp each and everything we're talking about.
Sounds great. And one more thing for our audiences here with us today, feel free to drop questions in the chat at any time. We're getting it into the Q&A session toward the end of the session. So, all right, I think we should get started. But before we jump into the frameworks and solutions, let's just pause on the problem for a moment, because almost everyone here is calling someone like leads, customers, candidates, partners, and yet the same question keep on coming up. And why aren't people picking up, right? So, Abhishek, from what you're seeing across teams, what's really happening in 2026?
Honestly, Swastika, so this is one of the biggest shifts that we've seen. So in 2026, people are more cautious than they've ever been, especially about phone calls. So it's not that calling is a thing of the past, So it's not that people, don't want to talk. It's just that people are more choosy about the phone calls they answer. So they're filtering way harder than before about the calls that they answer in the first place.
That's interesting because many teams assume the problem is call volume or frequent messages. But you're saying that the decision happens before even before the conversation starts, right?
Exactly. So the decision happens in the first couple of seconds because when the phone rings, when the user sees the phone number, most pickup issues come from like those specific triggers themselves. So the first is the unknown caller ID, right? So if the number isn't saved, if it isn't familiar, or if it doesn't look relevant, then people hesitate. So generally, hesitation means no pickup.
Right, and that hesitation has become almost spontaneous. People don't even consciously think about it anymore.
Right, exactly. So, and you can layer in the second issue is especially seeing international numbers, right? So for remote teams, this is a huge issue because when someone in Australia or the US, the UK sees an unfamiliar foreign number, automatically their brain comes into one of two conclusions. So either, this is a spam call, or this probably isn't relevant to me. So even though the call is completely legitimate, they are going to have that hesitancy in picking up that phone call.
And that's the frustrating part for the global teams because they're doing everything right. Great product, good intent, real use case, but the number itself becomes a barrier, right?
Exactly. And this is because of the third issue that they're facing because there's so many spam calls in the first place. So there is a spam fatigue for these users. So people have trained themselves to kind of protect their attention. So, any unknown number ignored, right? So unexpected calls are declined. So this isn't just like a personal kind of vendetta thing. It's just like a defensive behavior that people have put up in the first place. So yeah,
I guess which explains why teams see things like our emails get replies, but our calls don't.
yes, and that's what many businesses face. So there's another element to this. It's subtle, but it's still critical. Is customers are demanding a local experience, even when they are buying from a global company. So they are comfortable with global brands, but they still expect some level of local familiarity in them. So generally speaking, a local number signals a relevance, right? It signals like intent by the company that's saying to the customer, "Oh, I'm in your market. I understand your market."
Yeah, and so even in a fully remote world, people still care about how local a call feels, right?
Very much so, and this is why remote teams struggle even with strong offerings. So the problem here isn't the team; it's the first impression that the responder feels. So by the time the representative is already ready to speak, the call has already been judged.
So if we sum this up, it's all among unknown caller ID, international numbers, spam assumptions, and a mismatch with local expectation. And honestly, that's a tough combination.
It is, but it also makes the solution very clear. So if you want better pickup rates, you can't just be adding more phone numbers. You can't just switch dialers. You need a trust first calling system. So it's not a tool, it's not a feature, but rather a system itself, right? So it should be a system that's designed around how customers decide to answer because customers, usually don't wake up thinking, let me just ignore some business calls today. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why today we are not talking about buy a number and hope for the best. We are guiding through our structured approach and one that makes your call feels familiar, intentional, or and trustworthy before anyone says hello.
Yeah, so here's a simpler way to explain it. So a local number works because it reduces the mental resistance people feel when a phone rings. So whenever users see a number that is a local number, their brain does like quick checks, right? So the first one is, do I recognize this, right? So even if they don't know the exact number, the pattern of the numbers seems familiar because of the country code, the area code, the local style of the number, right? And the second is they ask themselves, is this relevant to me, right? So local number normally means that, it is, if it's coming from their proximity, maybe it is about them. So it signals intent that the call is meant for their market, it's meant for themselves, and it's not just a random international reach. And the third is it safe? So, so a local number by itself doesn't guarantee trust, but it increases the chance that this is relevant to them. They can trust this because it's from nearby. So in calling, that's everything, because once they answer, your team has the tools to make the best use of all the calling services.
So it's not that local number magically convince people. They simply remove the layers of doubt customer perceive, and even make them look more into the global business once the call ends.
Yes, and that's another important part in 2026. Customers don't just want global products, right? They want local experience with those products. So even if you're selling from anywhere, remote teams, distributed teams, customers still expect that businesses, expect that the businesses feel present in their market. So therefore, a local number means like a local signal itself. So it's announcing to the customers that we are accessible, we are here, we operate in a region, So and that is the expectation that is set strongest in like certain markets like the US, UK, Australia, Europe. Here, people are used to companies sounding local, even when they are physically present there.
Yes, that actually ties perfectly into the title of this webinar because the phrase "go global," sound local" sounds simple, but it captures the exact challenges our team faces. So when we say "go global," sound local, we're talking about building a phone experience where your business can expand into any market, but every call still feels like it belongs there. Whether you are calling customer for sales, prospect for demos, users for onboarding, or people calling in for support, the goal always stays the same: increase pickup rates from anywhere by running a system that creates local trust. Not just by having a local number, but by having a local framework inside your business phone system.
Yes, absolutely. So, because going global today is not the hard part anymore. You can run ads from anywhere, you can sell anywhere, and with today's internet, you can even hire remotely. But the hard part is when businesses make calls, sales calls to their marketing leads. But the question that impacts it all is, does your business sound like it belongs in that market? And that's why the title of today's session matters. So go global equals expanding into new regions, but sound local equals building that trust in those specific regions, the first ring at the first place. So increase pickup rates from anywhere equals making calls that connect reliably even with remote teams. So and the only way to do that consistently, like we talked about, is with a system itself, a system that brings international calling, that brings local numbers, and a tool to build a strategy that feels local to increase the call response. And that's where KrispCall comes in as well.
Um, okay, so when we say local, we're not just talking about buying a local number, and we're not just talking about promoting in a local market, and we're definitely not just talking about dialing internationally from anywhere or like from wherever you want. So, Abhishek, help us define this properly. When you say local is a system, what exactly do you mean?
Uh, Great question. So this is the most important clarification of the whole session. So we've discussed that local is not a feature, and it's clearly not a trick here. So local is actually a well-established business framework for how you design your calling presence in the market that's distant from where a company operates from. But still, you still want to make the experience of a neighborhood store right across the street for those customers. So think of it like if your business has a physical office in Australia, or the US, you wouldn't just put a phone on your desk and call it scaling, right? You'd set up a front desk experience, you'd set up business hours, you'd set up a way to route calls to the right team. You'd set up a consistent identity, a process to follow up when someone misses your call. So local simply is a virtual kind of version of that scaling. So it's a system that helps your calls feel local, no matter the distance, even with the distributed or remote teams.
Local is how you operationalize trust without physically being there. And clearly, just a local number would not complete it. As you said, the experience around it matters the most. Can you describe in detail what the local framework actually is?
Sure, but first understand this difference. It's more than here's a number, here's a local number that we bought, or here's a market-ready calling system that customers trust, right? So, um, in between, we say what a local is. So it's somewhere in between there. So, uh, as you can see, we come up with the abbreviation of local itself. So L stands for launching a business in a new market. So launch market, that's where it all begins. O stands for the ownership model of the team involved, and the numbers being used. C represents the call flow design with advanced phone app features like IVR, routing, open hours, voicemail. Um, A means assurance, which signals local trust, credibility, consistency. And L means loop recovery. So basically, how you're dealing with missed calls, SMS reporting, stuff like that. So this is the framework that we have, and we're going to discuss each in detail.
Okay, superficially, it's quite clear. But still, businesses do need to know how to roll out this playbook in between the phone system you bought and a credible calling setup that a market can trust. While still scaling globally is bound to come up with busy reps, mixed workflows, multiple reasons, limited setup time, as these challenges stand along the way.
Yes, and that's exactly where local starts with focus. Most teams don't fail because they choose the wrong market. They usually fail because they try to launch in too many markets at the same time. So they spread their attention thin when they do that, and the setup becomes quite rushed. And even if they are trying to be local, it doesn't actually feel local. So the first rule of local is simple. So start with one pilot market for the launch, and you pick that market using the criteria, the KPIs you already have set up. So it might be the market with the highest call volume, or the highest revenue potential, or maybe even lowest pickup rates, so that you can improve on that metric. So you don't need validation in all three of these metrics, right? So it can just be one of them. So just start small, just start with one, and you can go from there.
Okay, this is usually where teams pause and overthink. We've heard questions like, should we start with Australia or the US? Which market is better? So this seems like the shortcut. Start where you already have the demand or enough challenge. Don't guess, but move to the potential. Pilot launch first and prove impact, then continue to scale.
That's right on point. So, it's important to remember that this isn't a long-term commitment yet, right? So think of it like an experiment when you're launching to a new market. So once the market is finalized, you can set up the pilot team, and then you can allocate the sales and support teams to that market, and you can even recruit, members suitable for that specific market. So that's step one done, right? And with this launch, the decision is clear because you've decided on a reason. You can prioritize, what strategies you're going to incorporate for that reason. Um, this also makes your further steps much easier because you're only designing a setup for one specific market at a time and not 5 or 10.
So you know what, Abhishek? I'm more curious now. What's next in the ownership model?
So the O of the local framework here, is the ownership model. So once the market is clear, the next stage is planning this model. So you have a local number for that market, but who should actually own that local number? Who should take ownership of it? And how many members should you hire? Right. So this decision matters more than businesses usually realize, because this factor directly affects the accountability, the coverage, and the ability to scale further as time goes on, when pickup rate starts to increase. So in local framework, there's normally three common models that we use. So first is like full control. So in this, each member gets access to the local number. So this works especially well for distributed and remote teams that are involved in sales and support follow-ups, so basically outbound calls. So here, accountability, performance, and visibility are the things that matter the most. So business owners and managers get to see who called, who followed up, and which conversations converted. Um, and the second strategy is defining the call strategy. So this means that the local numbers are assigned to each member on purpose. So the local number is shared for like different teams, but it's only accessible to those when assigned within the team itself. So these are great for inbound use cases, right? So for support or general inquiries, here coverage and availability matter more than individual ownership, so that there's no single point of failure, right? So if one person is busy or cannot make it to work, then the missed calls are not just because happen because one person is busy. And third is a kind of a hybrid. It's the more popular with enterprise setup that have both sales and support in the modern market. So one number is shared between sales and support, and you can do this with modern telephony services like KrispCall. So you can direct inbound calls directly to the support team, while the sales team makes outbound calls with the same number with full control, right? So um, the entire operation is visible within one single number. So this gives businesses the best of both worlds in a single place. So they get both coverage as well as accountability.
So to simplify this, ownership model is not just choosing a number. Businesses are choosing how responsibility, coverage, and trust work together.
Yes, and depending on these models, either one or two local numbers can sustain the launch of one market entirely, so even when, so they even scale better when growing, because this reduces confusion about what actually is the phone number of this business when you're using like too many, and it keeps the customer experience consistent. So if they have gotten a call through the sales rep from one number, later on when they can call back in the same number, right? So, and businesses also need to recruit members and assign them numbers and not just add another one every time, right? So, from what we've seen from larger teams, especially with companies with more than 100 employees, hybrid setups are usually the most stable in the long run.
So with L and O clearly defined, looks like half the problem is resolved because guessing is almost replaced by intentional designing.
No, I wouldn't say half is solved. Let's say 30 to 35%, because it only sets up the foundation for the actual design. But if businesses have decided on their pilot market, they can easily purchase the local number and prepare for the next day. So this is where the actual designing is about to start.
The call flow blueprint, I have been eagerly waiting for this part to start. So please, Abhishek, the mic is all yours. Tell us how the call flow design works.
Thank you, Sasika. And you're right, this is the part where most teams finally start to see the results. So after the foundation, the call flow design is where businesses build the real impact. So with local numbers, the outreach pickup rates will show at least a slight difference, right? This is where the ROI actually starts to go up. Um, your business calls need to be talked about. Your services need to receive feedback. Their experience as a customer need to be referred to and shared. Um, because a local number without a a proper call flow is like a website without a single button. So customers have no idea what they're supposed to do next. So to understand what call flow is by design, first think of it from your sales representative's point of view, right? So let's say a customer decided to answer, or they've decided to call you back from a voicemail drop, right? So your question as a sales rep is what experience do they land in, right? Is it clear? Is it professional? Is it what they've expected from the brand, or does it feel very random? So that one experience determines whether trust increases, and pickup rates gradually take the pace over time. So for that to happen, we'd have to go with minimum enterprise call flow. So let's start with the basics. The business hours, although it's basic, it's very critical, because imagine this. So you've set up a remote team to work locally. You have the local number, but if you're reaching out to the customers at 2 a.m. in the morning, right, that's not going to signal intent. They're not going to trust that number, right? So operating business hours remotely and as a distributed team, so the outbound calls must always ring during the customer's business hours, right? But for the support calls, you have to be available 24/7 to answer to any support issues. So this makes sure that the sales calls never ring into silence, right? So that's why outreach must be made during customers' business hours, neither morning nor evening nor at night, only during the business hours. And missed calls should never leave the caller guessing about where did this call come from. So you also need to add a voicemail drop to your outreach. So speaking of voicemail leads us to the second part, which is call routing logic. So for a pilot market, it's kind of a preparation stage for when your local number starts to ring in. So the basic routing logic answers two questions for incoming calls, right? So who gets the call first? And second is what happens if the call goes unanswered? So routing is where most businesses kind of accidentally lose trust, which later on is going to impact, without clear logic, calls either go to the wrong person, it can ring the same representative endlessly, even though they're trying to talk to a different person, or calls might just drop completely. So routing logic ensures that customers don't have to face difficulties when using your business services, and their satisfaction stories spread to increase the response rate. So coming into the second question, the answer is voicemail. So a lot of teams treat voicemail as an afterthought, but voicemail is still part of the experience. So if you have set up a professional voicemail, that does two things. It sets expectations, and it also reduces anxiety for the caller, because it's basically telling them, we heard you, we'll follow up on your issue. So this alone prevents most of the drop-offs. And businesses shouldn't ignore IVR either, because IVR doesn't add friction, but it prevents misrouting. So by branching out departments into further categories and help callers self-direct quickly into the services that they need.
Perfectly said, Abhishek. And small setup can changes do create a big difference after all, right? So, for example, sales calls shouldn't land on support teams. Support calls need to ring for just a general inquiry, and after hours calls should not make a customer feel like the customer vanished overnight. These aren't technical problems, and can easily be solved by switching to practicalities.
Correct. And now let's get to the assurance part of local. So this is where sound local really comes to life, right? So when using local numbers in call flow design is just a stepping stone. So it's just a setup to build some trust, some accountability through consistency to the customers. So customers don't just judge the number. Once they pick up, they start judging the entire experience. And assurance comes from a few key signals here. So a consistent caller identity with specific number in a specific market can help you do that. Um, and you even have to store and note information gathered during calls, so that you can know the customers, and this is going to help the sales team continue, and it helps to retain that customer. um, Set up professional greeting and voicemail recordings, right? So this sets up the tone instantly for incoming calls. You can set up voice-guided menus for clear team routing. So this solves confusion, and customers don't bounce around transfers. And always prioritize faster follow-up for missed calls, which shows reliability, and it's telling each of the customers, this business knows what it's doing.
So, sounding local is not about pretending to be local. It's about trusting us, earning trust through design. So, because when customer thinks back to your call, they don't remember the feature list. They remember how the experience felt. And when it feels familiar, clear, and intentional, customer and business relationships start to build.
Yes, and of course, it increases call pickup rates as well.
Yes, obviously. So, can you tell us about the loop recovery of the local framework as well, Abhishek?
Absolutely. So this is where everything comes together. So because even with local numbers, even with clean call flows, missed calls are still bound to happen, because businesses become busy. Employees are in meetings, agents are already occupied because there's a high call volume. In such scenarios, what sets high performing teams is to maintain their local presence consistent, is a clear mindset that those missed calls are not dead ends. There's still a conversion opportunity waiting to happen, but in order to do that, you must close that loop.
There is an important mindset shift to maintain because most teams treat missed calls like failures and ignore them, which is clearly not the way to think for an aftermath.
Yeah, that's well put, because high performing teams actually treat missed calls more like signals themselves, because if someone's calling you, it means like they're showing intent. So even though they showed intent, the timing just didn't work. So instead of letting that moment disappear, they close the loop. And the loop itself is very simple. So here's what closing a missed call loop looks like. Whenever you receive a missed call, a notification is received, its voicemail is assigned to an available representative. So and businesses define a callback window to in advance to set up for every missed call. So usually that's 10 to 30 minutes, and this speed matters a lot more than businesses realize, because the faster you respond, the higher the chances that the context is still fresh and they haven't gone to a competitor, for example. So and if the callback fails to connect, they follow up with SMS.
That's a clear direction to the teams and where they often feel stuck, and obviously the consistency matters here too. The complexity of they know they should follow up but they don't know how to do it cleanly simply disappears.
So yeah, let's make this very practical. Follow-up emails can be saved as macros, and if the voicemail demands anything specific, AI tools in modern phones clearly guide the response in just minutes. So few templates can reduce involvement with so KrispCall has this feature called auto SMS replies. So once you get a missed call, it automatically sends an SMS to the caller. So you can set up templates, and the templates can be as simple and professional as, "Hi, we tried to reach you. When's a good time to call?" Right? This shows it's simple. It's not pushy. It keeps the conversation open. Um, and if it's a support call, you can say something like, "Hi, we missed your call. We received the issue, or we're working on things right now." So this can reassure the customer that they are heard, and it also prepares conversation for the next call. It just doesn't keep judging and waiting in the background.
So this does clear one more thing. This only works when SMS is a part of the local framework, not separately messaging in another inbox, which which will keep the conversation scattered. The loop has to live inside your calling workflow, because when calls and SMS are disconnected, follow-ups are forgotten and consistency starts to drop.
And that's
Uh,
exactly where most teams struggle. It's not because of effort, but because their tools aren't designed to work together, right? So you're exactly right about SMS. So local only works, when the system supports it end to end. That means, calls, SMS, voicemails are in the same inbox for a user. So voicemails have to show alongside missed calls, if you have set up a auto SMS reply, that has to show up beside that missed call as well. So the context has to stay attached to the conversation. Alongside, there might be call recordings, call transcripts, because when everything lives in just one place, the system does the remembering for you.
And that means the local framework we have described is not realistic yet for businesses, because agents don't know how to bring these into their local numbers. And questions like, how do I outreach when with a voicemail drop, or which inbox is voicemail in, or which of my members need to see this, only feels like a fantasy unless they know. Setting up a local framework is already possible in KrispCall.
Yes, and you've mentioned the right thing, because implementation matters just as much as strategy. So KrispCall is built from grounds up to support this kind of workflow. It's not just for, calling once or calling twice or SMS. I mean, it can do that, but it's designed to handle like complex setups and systems. So standing at the center of it all stores all conversations in what we call the unified call box. So here, all the calls, SMS, MMS, voicemails, they all come to the same place. So for each user, you can see a timeline of the conversations, each and every context about that user. So you don't need to switch tools, you don't need separate inboxes, and losing context simply avoids the risk. So inside the same inbox, teams can even see call and voice recordings instantly. They can listen to recordings, they can generate transcripts, they can reply internally to team members, so directly in the thread that the customer won't see. So if there's like some conversation, some notes about a specific customer or a ticket, um, so they can also loop and assign teammates on specific conversation doing that. So this way, the follow-ups remain clear at any point. So they don't need to be maintaining any, Excel sheet with follow-up action items. Everything's in one place. So instead of connecting teammates on a separate platform and there's a confusion about, okay, who needs to handle this? Who's working on it, right? But with KrispCall, everything is just very obvious.
So that immediately removes a lot of the friction agents usually face. They don't have to organize their tasks separately. They just focus on responding in time.
Yeah, exactly. And to make follow-ups even easier, there's AI assistant right inside the inbox. So it helps generate relevant SMS responses by looking at the context of the conversation. So the agents don't have to type from scratch every time. And team can also save like macros and auto reply strategies. So per phone number or per use case. So depending on sales, support, onboarding teams, right? So responses can stay consistent and on brand every time. And all of this happens without leaving their local phone number, right? And since assurance comes from consistency, businesses can set up the same greeting on incoming calls, the same voicemail tone for unavailability, and they can maintain same follow-up language across the team. So the brand experience doesn't depend on which specific agent which was available that day. It just is unified for all the teams.
And KrispCall also connects call routing effortlessly, because once calls start coming in at scale, manual handling breaks the progress. Right, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. That's where voice guided menus and multi-level IVR in KrispCall This helps keep customer satisfaction intact. So teams can branch any incoming call across departments. So let's say you have just one phone number for your whole business in a region, then you can branch that to sales team, support team, billing team, IT team, even management, right? So um, when the call is received by the necessary expert, it's just that instant. So this helps reduce like transfers or holds, and it starts to the brand starts to actually build trust and value. And since numbers aren't tied to a single person, the same phone number again can be shared across multiple team members, right? Multiple departments, even if needed. So this is just perfect for coverage and continuity.
Okay, so when you step back and look at it, going global and sounding local is not just a framework teams aspire to follow. It's something they can actually run day to day without adding complexity.
Yes, and KrispCall scales at each market side by side. So either in pilot market, businesses are at, or let's say they're in the fifth market that they've just started. So with KrispCall, it makes it possible for for you to add unlimited number of members into the same workspace, right? Along with local virtual phone numbers from 100 plus countries, while you can manage them all within the same phone system, within the same workspace, without the need to look anywhere. So that's why we call it a fully compliant as well as fully transparent.
Finally, this brings everything together. The 2026 calling strategy is actually very simple. Go global by building local presence in the market that matters. Sound local through consistent caller identity and professional call flows. Increase pickup rates with smart routing, missed calls recovery, and timely SMS follow up. And scale confidently by tracking what's working and maintaining visibility across teams. That's the system you can achieve with KrispCall in minutes.
Yes, that's the difference businesses get to feel in KrispCall, and we've gotten so many feedback from our customers, and we've built the system very robust. So local works when the strategy and system meet, when calls, messages, routing, follow-ups, and visibility all live together. Uh, just by doing this, the trust just stops being accidental. It becomes more intentional.
One more thing, Abhishek. Once the local framework is finally in place for businesses, the next question every leader asks is simple. How do I know this is actually working? Because trust is great, better experiences matter, but at the end of the day, teams need proof.
Okay, yeah. Local framework that we presented here is very much measurable, right? So we live in a data-driven world. So, but we don't need complex dashboards, right? You don't need months of data. You just have to make sure you're tracking the right signals. So for me, I think five core metrics will tell you everything. So first is the pickup or connect rate. So this is, of course, the most obvious one. If the local framework is working, then the number moves first. This metric has to move first, right? So second is the outreach callback rate. So this signals how many leads responded later after the voicemail drop. Um, Third, we see it as follow-up consistency. This tracks how many follow-ups are actually building a conversation. And fourth is conversion or resolution rate. So for sales, this might mean how many meetings they book and how many uh, they convert to paying customers. For support, this might mean how many tickets or issues that they're solving over time. And fifth is the missed call recovery rate. So how many missed calls still turn into conversations, how many of them still convert. Um, so I think if the teams are just measuring these metrics, they can figure out and discover their ROI and revenue.
And the best part is you don't have to roll this out everywhere to measure it.
Yes, and the cleanest way to do it is with a pilot, So here's a method that we recommend with a local frameworks is to baseline your local numbers for 7 to 14 days. Launch local in just one market with one team and then you can, track changes over next 14 to 30 days, right? So you first start so this acts like an experiment. So you start without a local framework for 14 days, and then you can after you implement the local model, you can implement it for the next 14 days, and then you can compare the difference. So yes, and the cleanest way to do this is with a pilot. So here's the method we recommend with the local framework. So you can baseline your local numbers for 7 to 14 days. So basically, you operate, as you would, and then you launch local in one market for with one team, and then you track those changes over the next 14 days or 30 days, right? So what you get at the end isn't a guess because you're comparing results before and after. So what you get is evidence. What you get, you know it's science. That's what allows the teams to scale confidently.
Which means local isn't just a framework you believe in. It's something you can prove. Okay, Abhishek. As it's time to wrap up, and we've received a few questions here from our audiences today. So let's quickly answer it for them.
Sure, sounds good.
The first question is a very common one. If we're growing team and want to get started quickly, what's the fastest way to implement local without overwhelming our agents? Okay.
That's a good question. And honestly, it comes from a lot of our customers as well. So the fastest way is not to redesign everything, right? So if you're doing that, then it overcomplicates things. So instead, pick any one of your markets. We've already discussed on, a few metrics that you can think of when choosing that market that has high revenue potential, that has bad pickup rates, right? Uh, Designate one team for that market. You can set up one clean call flow, which means, any call routing, which team gets what calls, stuff like that. Um, and then let the team use the same local virtual number for outbound calls and add basic routing, voicemail, and missed call SMS loop for inbound. So once pickup rates start to improve, you can scale it by adding more team members to that team, and you can adopt the same setup going forward in the next markets, right? So. And note this, local works best when it's introduced as a separate upgrade, um, which is not a disruption in your existing process.
Start small, prove impact, and then expand.
Yes, exactly.
So the next question is about IVR. We've avoided IVR because we don't want to frustrate callers. When does IVR actually make sense?
Um, this is actually a really important one. IVR only becomes frustrating when it's overused. So IVR makes sense when you have multiple teams or high inbound call volume or frequent misrouted calls. So even a simple IVR, like two options, can significantly reduce transfers and delays. So the key is to keep it short and intentional. So if you have like too many teams, if just the message of the IVR is going on for 2 minutes, of course that's going to create some frustrations. But if it's short and simple, it can really help the caller reach the right team faster. This improves the experience. It doesn't hurt it.
Clearly, it's less about adding menus and more about removing confusion and moving to the next and final question. So, how do we prove to leadership that improving pickup rates actually impacts revenue or outcomes?
So this is where data and measurement really matters. We already talked about 5 core metrics. You can use your own metrics too. What's important to your business, your own KPIs. But generally, that means pickup or connect rate. That means outreach, callback rate, follow-up consistency, conversion or resolution rate, or missed call recovery rate. So you can run before and after experiments for one market over 30 days. And if the leadership sees higher pickup rates, which they will, which will lead to more conversions and conversations and faster follow-ups, the impact becomes very clear. So local turns calling from a cost center from management's point of view into a measurable growth channel.
Clearly, these answers are a lot helpful to all the audiences as well. Thank you, Abhishek, and thank you to everyone who sent in questions. Since we're about to close the session today, anything you want to add to our audiences today, Abhishek?
Let me close the session with this thought. So once you prove it to one market, you can scale it there and move it to the next one, right? So rolling it out to the next becomes the same process with lower risk. So you might be figuring out the process in the first market, but again, this is going to help you expand into global markets. So this confidence is that the same benchmark is possible in this new market as well. So that's how teams go global and sound local, with KrispCall without losing any control.
Thank you, Abhishek. Today we talked about global teams can increase pickup rates by designing for trust, not just activity. You saw how local works as a system, from choosing the right market to call flows to recovery loops to measurement, and most importantly, you saw that this isn't just theoretical. It's something you can implement today. So, if you want to take the next step and see how KrispCall can support this setup for your team, you can connect with us after this webinar. Just contact us at KrispCall.com. We'll guide you with the local checklist step by step, including the pilot plan and the call flow blueprint and the metrics to track. So, thank you for joining us today.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Swastika.
Thank you.